Welcome back to the NCAA Track and Field Show. I'm your host, Gordon Mack, and today we're going to break down an individual event. Now, this past weekend, we had a really big burst of new athletes on the scene. We saw some fast distance events, some good throws, some good jumps, and notably, an incredible 60-meter performance. And that 60-meter performance by Terrence Jones, a redshirt freshman. Well, technically, he's a true freshman because of COVID. It didn't count. But anyway, it's his second year at Texas Tech. He's a freshman. He ran outdoors last year, but he wowed us with his 60-meter performance in Lubbock, Texas. Take a look at this performance. He ran out of his mind, 6.45, tying the NCAA record. Now, technically, it was at altitude, so in the seeding races, in the seeding world, it's really going to be converted to a 6.47, but 6.45s don't grow on trees. I don't care if you're running on top of Mount Everest or you're running at the bottom of the ocean, 6.45 is 6.45. And what Terrence Jones did as a freshman at Texas Tech is something to take notice because he all of a sudden becomes a factor. We thought this race was Micaiah Williams' race to lose of Oregon. He's a defending champion in the 60. He ran a fast 100 outdoors. He ran a fast 60 this year. He ran 6:48 this year already. But now Williams of Oregon has a main challenger from Texas Tech in Terrence Jones. And this got me thinking, let's break down the rankings of the men's 60. But before that, let's take a quick look. Again, every week, head over to the FloTrack homepage. We got a bunch of different shows. But most notably, we got the rankings. Click on the ranking page. We got our NCAA rankings. They are updated on a weekly basis. I already updated them. You can see the team rankings. Not much has changed really on the men's and women's side. Top two teams, Georgia, Texas. On the women's side, top two teams, Florida, Texas A&M. Breaking it down on a week-by-week basis. But today, we're going to look specifically at one event and one event only. That is the men's 60-meter dash. Looking at our rankings right now, this is who we have, or I have, or FloTrack has, as of today, top 8 rankings. We have Micah Williams, freshman from Oregon, Terrence Jones, newcomer from Texas Tech, DeAndre Swint, Ricoi Brathwaite of Indiana, Tavares Wright, Keyshawn James, Sean Masaganwi, and Brendan Stewart. That is our top 8. And things are going to change, right? Because this is all based off what's happened only this past weekend, plus a little bit of what's happened all of 2021. Because you can't just throw out last year and rank purely on one weekend of competition. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of give the audience my current top 8, which you see here, my honorable mentions right now, and kind of break down where I think these athletes will end up in March when it comes down to it, when they face each other in Birmingham, Alabama. So let's open up my spreadsheet here. These are, again, my top 8 ranked athletes, Williams, Jones, Swint, etc. I have a few honorable mentions. Joseph Fambula, we know what he did at the Olympics. Matthew Bowling, obviously he ran a 20:49 in the 200 already this year. Dedrick Vanover of Florida ran 6:60, very impressive. And you can see basically my athletes I have ranked, my honorable mention, and where they finished in the 60-meter dash last year. You notice in my ranked athletes, I have obviously the top returner who finished first. Brathwaite finished third. Wright finished fourth. Brendan Stewart finished 8th. And then Swint and Masaganwi finished 11th and 12th. Didn't make the final. And there's some people I don't even have ranked that, finished better than Masaganwi in the 60. But you got to look at what they did outdoors. You got to look at what you kind of think they're going to do this year. And really put together and be like, all right, no, Sean Masaganwi's he's gonna be in the final. So, speaking of gonna be in the final, we have every year, I've gone back pretty much every year, a surprise that doesn't make the final. Let's just look at last year. Last year, Sean Masaganwi, he didn't make the final. He was ranked 6th in the descending order list going into NCAAs. And he ended up not making final. If you go 3 years ago, because skip 2020, 2019, Cravant Charleston, he was the first one not to make the final. You know what Cravant Charleston was ranked going into NCAAs? He was ranked 2nd. He had the 2nd fastest time, and he didn't make the final. Go back another year. Andre Ewers, he false started. He was ranked 1st going into NCAAs, didn't make the final. Go back another year. You see Rafael Scott, 10th, Brandon Carnes, 11th, and Daryl Haraway, 14th. All three of those guys, they were tied for third in the descending order list before NCAAs. So what I'm getting at is, just because you're ranked 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, it's not a guarantee you're going to make the final, because crazy things happen. People false start. People have bad races. People have great races. Some people just aren't peaking until NCAAs. And you got to think about these factors when you're trying to project who's going to make an NCAA final. So with that said, here are my, as of today, percent chance of certain athletes making the NCAA final. Let's start with Michael Williams. He's run 6:48. He won last year. The percent chance of him making the NCAA final is 100%. I mean, I'm going on a limb that he's not going to get injured or anything like that. I think there's a 100% chance Michael Williams makes the final. Terrence Jones just ran an NCAA tying mark of 6:45 at altitude. I think he's going to make the final, but I'm only going to say 92%, because like I said, people who've had the fastest time going in have false started, have not made finals. 92% is still good. You also taking a fact, it will be his first NCAA indoor meet. Crazy things happen. There's an 8% chance a crazy thing happens, but 92% chance you run 6:45, you're going to make a final. DeAndre Swint, his odds go down a little bit more. I feel like DeAndre Swint, 85% chance of making the final. He didn't make the final in 2021. However, he did just run 6:53 this year. Clearly, he's better, but 85% chance of making the final. Keep on going down the list. I'm bad at his name. Ricoi Brathwaite. Man, oh man, this is going to be bad for me for the rest of these indoor few months. I don't know how to say it. Ricoi. Okay, I'm just going to stop. This podcast is getting annoying because I don't know how to say this guy's name. But anyway, he's shown he's consistent. He was third last year. He's already run 6:54 this year. 97% chance you're making the final. Look at that. I think there's a higher percent chance that he makes the final over Terrence Jones, who just tied the collegiate record. Kind of shows how the 60s is kind of wild. Tavares Wright, his percent chance of making the final, a little bit lower. A lot lower. I'm going to say 50%. He was fourth last year, but he already opened up his year this year with a 671, not in the 660 ranges or 6'5 ranges. So he has a talent, but right now it's a 50-50 toss-up if he makes the final. USC boys, I'm going to go show them all. So USC's Keshawn James is a TBD. Brendan Stewart, TBD. And Devontae Burnett, 40%. So I put Keshawn James to transfer from Florida State as a TBD because USC hasn't really raced yet. It's an unknown. I'm just going to put TBD. I'm not going to give you a percent chance of making a final yet. Same thing with Brendan Stewart. He was 8th last year. Hasn't raced yet this year. He's a TBD. And then Devontae Burnett, he's a senior. I put him at 40% chance. That's just like a casual 40% chance. Houston's Masanganwe, I have a lot of faith in this guy. I think he's going to make the final. I'm putting 100% chance. He's coached by Carl Lewis and Leroy Burrell. This guy knows, that program knows how to get people. He knows now what it's not like to not make a final. He kind of had his freshman baptism by fire by not making a final last year. But then he went on to run well outdoors. He made the Olympics. Sean Masanganwe, he's going to make the final, 100% chance. Joseph Fonbula. Now, this one's interesting. For this one, I said it's either TBD, it's either 0%, or it's either 100%. It's one of those three. So TBD means I don't know because he hasn't run yet. 0% chance because I could see a situation where he doesn't do it. Like he just focuses on the 200, focuses maybe putting on a 4x4 split. Maybe he's coming off an injury. We don't know. I mean, maybe he's not injured. Maybe coach is just kind of letting him run. He knows he has a long year because he's going to be running all the way into the World Championships in late summer. So there's no need for him to race right away. But it is kind of interesting. His teammates in Florida all ran except for him. Ja'Cory Patterson ran. Dedrick Vanover ran. I mean, there could be an obvious explanation, but right now it's a TBD. But 0% chance because he could be redshirting or just doing a 200. But if he is doing a 60, 100% chance. The guy freaking made the Olympic final in the 200. So 100% chance. Matthew Bowling, 20% chance. Mainly because I don't think he's that good in the 60. I think he's really a good 200, 400 guy. I think once you get to the 100 and shorter, you're kind of stretching him thin. I think he is best in the long jump, best in the 4x4 splits, best in the 200. So Georgia might not need to overwork him. So I'd say there's only 20% chance if he's in the 60. And then I'm going to just reveal all these at once. Percent chances. I'm going 50% chance for Dedrick Vanover, Florida. They're always going to be in a team battle. They can find a way to get at least one guy into that final in Dedrick Vanover. And then just, Lance Lang, Courtney Lindsey, Javon Martin, put them all at 40% chance. Javon Martin's an interesting character. He was, I think, let's bring up his T-First page. So he ran a 4x4 at Clemson in December. But remember, he ran 994, I think, last year. And he was fourth in the 100. So you have to think that should translate to a good 60. But this is kind of wild. His 60 is 667 and his 100 is 994. It's most people who are running 9.9s should be able to run at least 6.5s. Like, clearly he's, as it gets shorter, it gets a little harder. But, 994 is short and that's pretty good. So you have to think he's going to be able to put it together eventually. And that is the percent chance of making the final. I got my current rankings. Again, this is as of this week in early January. Things will change. New names will be added to this list. Old names will be taken off. Check out all of the rankings on FloTrack. We have the sprint rankings, men's and women's. We got distance. You name it, we're ranking it. As the season goes along on a weekly basis, see where your favorite team, your favorite athlete lands on these rankings. Check them out. We also, again, have world individual rankings. We eventually may bring out some U.S. rankings, and we do a ton of shows. We do the FloTrack podcast 3 times a week. We do This Week in Track, hosted by Kevin on YouTube. The FloTrack Rankings show. We have the NCAA Track and Field show, this show, Race Breakdown. You name it, we got it. Check out these race breakdowns with Carl Lewis, talking about Sha'Carri Richardson and Elaine Thompson-Herah. It's all good. Like, subscribe, follow us on all the platforms. You name it, you got it. I'm Gordon Mack. That's been another episode of the NCAA Track and Field Show.